Awesome. Well, again, good morning, and thank you for sharing this time with me this early morning. Tell me your name and what do you do?
Hey, I am Hugh Forrest, and I am the Chief Programming Officer at South by Southwest here in Austin.
And for those people who've been in a cave for the last, 20 years, 15 years, tell them what South by Southwest is.
Even longer than that, they were in a cave. South by Southwest started in 1987. We are a 10-day, 10-day to 2-week celebration of creativity and innovation
I'm going to stop
across.
you. I'm going to stop you because I'm a little starstruck. So I forgot that I'm supposed to be off camera and it's just you. So I've got to stop and hide myself, and
All right,
we're going to have to start over. So my
all
apologies.
good.
All
No
right.
worries.
So again, thank you for sharing this time with me this morning and this early morning. Tell us who you are and what do you do?
Hey, I am Hugh Forrest, and I am the Chief Programming Officer of South by Southwest here in Austin.
Awesome. And for those folks who've been in the cave over the last 20 plus years, you said 87, that's the year I graduated high school. So quite a long time. So tell them what South by Southwest is.
South by Southwest is about 30, 35 years old at this point. We are a 10-day to 2-week celebration of all things creativity and innovation in various industries, ranging from music to film to technology. But it shines a very bright light on all the creativity that happens in Austin year round.
And I actually saw, I travel abroad a lot, former military, and I've seen South by Southwest signs in other countries. So it's not just an Austin celebration.
Yeah, I think that South by Southwest is one of the things that's raised the profile of Austin nationally and internationally. It's something that has brought a lot more attention to the city and opened up a lot of people's eyes around the nation, around the world, about how cool this place is, and in that sense, played some part in our ongoing growth boom, and particularly the growth boom that's happened in the last year during the pandemic.
Speaking of the pandemic, obviously here in Austin, when South by Southwest was, when you guys decided to cancel, that was like it was almost like the world was about to end, because people said, if South by Southwest doesn't happen, what's going to happen to us? And it was just really, it was interesting watching, everything happen. So what was that like for you and you guys making that decision?
Well, it was certainly very, very difficult. I've been at South by Southwest off and on for 30 years, and that was certainly one of the most challenging weeks we've ever had. We had worked with the city throughout February and monitored this virus, and seemed like we were going to be able to slide in before it hit the U.S., and then all of a sudden, everything seemed to change. The city canceled South by Southwest on March 6th, the week before we were supposed to begin. That's the first time that's ever happened in 30 plus years. Incredibly difficult decision from the city to do that, but certainly in retrospect, it was the right decision, because it would have been just a super spreader event if we'd had people from all over the world coming to Austin during the early stages of the pandemic. So again, very, very challenging. It led us to lay off a lot of our staff and friends, and it's been a very tough year, or very tough 18 months for everyone in the event business in Austin, around the US and around the world. Knock on wood that things are beginning to reopen, and that 2022 for South by Southwest will be back to a robust IRL in real life event. We're certainly seeing that with a lot of things in Austin, around the US, with ACL a few weeks ago, with football games, with bigger crowds at concerts. So there's a lot of optimism, although there's also, we've got to learn something from the last 18 months, is that let's not underestimate the power of this virus and take every precaution possible.
Absolutely. So let's talk about South by Southwest and how did you get involved and why?
I was smiling because the story, my origin story at South by Southwest, which is largely accurate as origin stories go, is that I was hired in 1989, 2 years after you graduated from high school. I was the first paid employee, and I was largely hired because I had a computer and South by Southwest didn't. And it was more actually that I had a printer and South by Southwest didn't. So I always say that that is a lesson in the importance of having the right hardware at the right time. But you know, I'd always been very interested growing up. I grew up here in Austin also. Always been very interested in the music scene here, the vibe of creativity, the vibe of youth, the vibe of energy in the city. And so in many ways, though I didn't quite understand it at the time, South by Southwest really fulfilled a lot of those kinds of aspirations I had. And it's been an incredible ride to watch it, you know, go from a few people and a fairly big regional event to more than a few people and an international event that again brings so much attention from around the world and so many incredible people to Austin and celebrates spring in all forms of the word and concept.
So it's one thing to start with them, but why did you stay?
Well, truth be told, I've quit a few times. So, you know, it's the, but I have stayed with the event primarily because I love that feeling that we get when we host South by Southwest, when you bring people together and create that sense or recreate or enforce that sense of community, gives people a place to make new connections, to create new opportunities, a place where people can be inspired. It is it's very intoxicating to hear people say, coming to South by Southwest is the highlight of my year, and we continue to hear that, and it's likewise intoxicating to hear that people say, you know, I came here last year, I got a new job out of it, I got funding, I met someone who completely changed my outlook on life, I met my girlfriend, my boyfriend, my wife, my husband, and you know, being a small part of an event like that has that kind of impact on people's lives is something that I haven't yet given up. How's that?
Awesome. Well, I was in the military, so I tell people I got stuck here in Austin. I'm probably the only one that didn't come willingly. But I retired here. My ex, he went to UT for grad school, so that's how I got stuck. And my son's name is Austin.
Nice.
My other son's name is Forrest, spelled exactly like yours.
Nice.
So, well, and speaking of having such a unique name, you seem to be the face of South by Southwest. Who started it? Because you're like Tito and his dog, all over the world.
I don't think I hope I'm not the face of South by Southwest. I mean, because I get to speak a lot. I get to talk a lot about South by Southwest. That's an honor and a privilege. But I truly believe that the power of South by Southwest is the power of this community. Whether it's people in Austin, whether it's a virtual community, or whether it's that virtual community around the U.S. and around the world, it's people coming together who make this event special. And most of my most of the ideas that I have that I think are good, or that my staff have that I think are good, are ideas that we've, that people in the community have shared with us. So again, it's the power of the community. In terms of the actual brain trust of the event, my boss is a gentleman named Roland Swenson, who is the CEO. He tends to be a little more shy, so doesn't go out and talk quite as much as I do. But he was the one who started South by Southwest in 1987. It was modeled after an event in New York called the New Music Seminar. And Roland had managed bands that had gone to the New Music Seminar and benefited from the New Music Seminar. And so there was a little bit of a, something a North Star to pattern ourselves off of, but certainly South by Southwest has evolved in many, many different and unique ways since 1987. At that point, it was entirely focused on music. Today, we focus on, again, music, film, technology, food, sports, transportation, government. But the bottom line here is still very much the same, that we showcase and celebrate and highlight very, very creative people and help creative people to achieve their goals, to learn how they can succeed in the world on their own terms, achieve what they want on their own terms. And that's again a really neat thing to do.
And how big is South by Southwest at this point?
In terms of staffers, we have about 150 on staff now. That's down, but we had to reduce during because of the pandemic, and we also work with a small army of volunteers, which again feeds into that idea that the community is such a big part of the event. In terms of the amount of people it brings to Austin, we end up having about 70,000 badged attendees. People who buy the badge come to the event. That's over the course of the 2 weeks of the event. So it's never quite 70,000 registrants at one time. There are probably between 150 and 200,000 consumers, quote unquote, who come to town because they've heard that South by Southwest is such a great time in Austin, and they want to see the free music or free movies, that type thing. This ends up having a huge economic benefit for the city. By our count, the economic impact of South by Southwest on Austin is about $350 million. That is hotel rooms bought, restaurant meals purchased, taxis and Ubers hailed, trinkets, T-shirts, all kinds of money that goes into our economy and helps, improve the systems in Austin. Per our conversation, even more important, I think, is the media exposure it shines onto Austin, where so many people around the U.S. and around the world, South by Southwest is one of their first points of exposure to the city, either by attending or by, watching news accounts or online media accounts of things that happened here. So it's been as I said before, it's been an incredible run. I never in my wildest imagination, when I came onto the team in 1989, that I think it would evolve to something this big. And again, that evolution has been some by our doing, a lot by the power of the community, and lots of fortunate breaks along the way.
So tell us where you were born and raised.
I am a townie. I was born and raised right here in Austin, Texas.
Tell us what life was like.
Well, when I grew up here back in the dark ages, Austin was, it was much more of a college town. We're much smaller, and UT was a much bigger part of the footprint of Austin. And my perspective there is certainly a little biased because my dad was a professor, so I was part of that college town vibe. I often say that, in the 70s and 80s, or late 80s, I guess, the kind of thing that personified Austin was the Richard Linklater movie Slacker, which talked about, was a kind of ode to people who are on the 5 or 6 or 7 year college plan and weren't doing a whole lot. And how that has changed over the last 20 or 25 years. We are no longer a sleepy college town. We are a bustling metropolis. We're number 10 or 11 in the US in terms of total population. If you're not actively doing something to pay the rent, you probably can't live here anymore, or it's harder to live here than it was 30 years ago. But similar to South by Southwest, I think that as much as the city has changed, that focus on creativity, that focus on community, that positive energy is still very much the same now as it was, 30 or 40 years ago. That's as far back as I'll go when I was growing up here.
What do you like most about what you do?
There are a lot of things I like about what I do. What I like most is being able to work with creative people, whether they are creative people on my staff or whether they are the creative people that we try to bring to South by Southwest, and being inspired by those creative people. I mean, inspiration is a huge part of what we do. I think inspiration has always been important to South by Southwest, but even more so in our current world, with all the many challenges we have, and finding people who can give people hope and optimism, and change their perspectives from glass half empty to glass half full.
What advice would you give someone who wants to be the next Hugh Forrest?
My advice is you can probably do it a heck of a lot better than I can. But that as with anything in life, the more energy, the more time you put in, the more energy you put in, the more you get out of it. And that's always been my formula for success, is just grind away and take a long-term perspective, and try to learn from one's mistakes and get better. And as many mistakes as I've made along the way, and there have been many, I think I've generally learned from those, and been able to rebound and do better things in the future.
I found some questions from Tim Ferriss that I liked. And one of them is, what purchase of $100 or less has most positively impacted your life over the last 6 months?
Wow, that is a great question. I think the purchase of $100 or less, and I just did one this week, is buying 6 more Mead notebooks. I tend to, when I'm creatively blocked, when I can't figure out what I'm doing, I tend to write things down, whether that's a to-do list, whether that's a list of people I want to speak at South by Southwest, whether it's a list of things I want to improve at South by Southwest, or a list of things we're doing well. I get comfort in translating things from that fragile place up there to something more tangible on paper. So that's one of my go-to things. I will also say that for me, one of the big benefits of that last 18 months of the pandemic, I grew my hair out, yes, but I've also had a lot more time to read, and I'm always amazed at the power of reading, at the new ideas that can generate, and those, whatever 10 or 15 or $20 books there that I've purchased have been paid for themselves in terms of the enjoyment I've gotten out of them many times over.
Here's another one that I really liked. What's an unusual habit or absurd thing you love?
An absurd thing that I love, um, but I have to. The love is more in my mind than in my stomach at this point. Is Frito pie. It's my favorite food ever, and I know it doesn't agree with me that much anymore. So again, I have to restrict it. I like that a lot. For non food things, not absurd, but I've also, the pandemic has allowed me to, or empowered me, or refocused my my meditation practice, where I try to get in 10 to 12 minutes every morning before I start the day. It's certainly something that, one of the people I learned from on this is Tim Ferriss, and has, I think, helped focus me. I think a lot of us have very different approaches, but it all kind of boils down to some of the same things, whether it's, praying in the morning, whether it's just quiet time, whether it's reciting some kind of mantra. That kind of focus is I think, improved my abilities on a lot of levels. And I've, over the last 20 years, I've had periods where I've meditated a lot, and then where I've gotten away from it. I'm glad that I'm back into that groove now.
If you had a gigantic billboard, which obviously you have, but if you had a gigantic billboard anywhere in the world, and you could put a message out to millions and billions of people, what would it be?
God, that's a great question. I think that the message would be probably the 3 C's: creativity, communication, and community, and the power of those 3 C's. I've talked about how important I think creativity is, and how important that community is, and certainly communication is a subset of community, but it's certainly one of the most difficult things in the world. Communicating between people who are in a relationship, people who aren't in a relationship. We so often miscommunicate, but simply trying to communicate is 90% of the battle there. And the more we try to do this, the better we are. So I tend to like alliteration. It helps me remember things. So again, 3 C's: community, communication, and creativity.
Over the last few years, what have you become better at saying no to?
Wow, that's a great question. I think that we've become a little bit better at just putting stricter boundaries on what we can do at South by Southwest and what we can't do, and that comes from the perspective is that I've always held the opinion that South by Southwest is sensory overload, that we bring together all this content, all these activities, and that is one of the things that makes the event so special. I think that in recent years, I've become more cognizant of the fact that I can't quite do all the things that I wanted to do 10 or 15 years ago, and better to do a little less, do it more fully than try to embrace everything and not doing it, executing it as well as we'd like. So, I mean, it is simply learning to say no and being more comfortable in saying no, but having a long-term perspective there and saying, no, I don't think we can do this in 2022. Let's talk next summer about how we can implement this in 2023. And I think that long-term perspective is something that's always been an asset for South by Southwest. It is something that I try to also embrace in my personal life, but often I'm more impatient personally than professionally.
When you feel overwhelmed or unfocused, how do you get back to center?
These days, it's again retreating to my notebook, writing things down, writing what I feel overwhelmed about, trying to break it down into smaller parts. It is going back to meditation, taking a walk, trying to remove myself, trying to set better limits on the time I spend online, and turning that off more, since there's a sense of overwhelm that contributes a lot to being overwhelmed. One of the books I read this summer, which has had a big impact on me, is a book by a guy named Cal Newport. The title of the book is A World Without Email, and basically it's this idea that we think we're good at multitasking and doing 5 different emails at once. In reality, we're not very good at multitasking, and the more we try to do it once, the less productive we are. So that has helped me, or that has led to me changing some of my online habits, trying to focus less on emails and more on big picture thinking. And that has been a challenge for me, because I always one of my strong points has always been that I respond to most people's emails quickly, and I feel that that's a sign of respect, a sign of engagement, but trying to realize that maybe that's not the most healthy thing for myself or for the world.
How has failure, or an apparent failure, or a challenge set you up for later success?
Probably in the most obvious ways, just trying to when I get over the immediate sting of that, trying to go back and analyze what happened, why did I fail, how did I not prepare myself better for success, how do I not put myself in the same situation again. So again, just trying to break it down and take a bit by bit approach to what went right or what went wrong, and learning from that. I think that is something we've also done pretty well with South by Southwest over the years, particularly the team that I work with on the programming. And that means that, we tend to be a little bit on a high note when the event happens. When the event's immediately over, you get all this positive feedback, and then 2 or 3 weeks after that, we spend a month reading all the feedback, and the feedback usually brings you back down to size pretty quickly. One, because most people or a lot of the people who tend to write feedback are people who had negative experiences, but just trying to learn as much from that feedback as possible. So as much as you feel like you've created something great, reading feedback realizes that helps you realize that there's still a way to go. Connecting with the people who gave you negative feedback is often not fun, and you can often get negative and there's sometimes negative results that happen there. But I also find that when someone has written in feedback, and when you connect with them, they're often amazed that anyone even read what they wrote, took it seriously, took the time to respond, and that you can, that whole concept of turning your biggest critic into your biggest advocate. I've seen that happen a few times. So again, just trying to take your ego out of the process and learn and communicate and get a better result next time.
How do you give back?
I give back. I mean, I'm on a couple of boards now, nonprofit boards. Particularly, I'm honored to be on the board for Austin Habitat for Humanity, although that term rolls off soon, so I'll go to an alum there. I think more the giving back perspective is trying to do that within the structures of South by Southwest of how can we, create a better world within our little world, and hopefully that becomes a model for others to follow. So I think, or I hope that that idea shapes a lot of what we do at the event.
That was actually one of the points that people kept making about you and why it was important for you to be on this list was the platform, the way you use your platform. And so can you talk a little bit about how you use your platform to get back?
Well, over the years, we realized that, yes, we do have a platform, and that what we showcase at the event does shape a lot of the conversation out there. So that has led to us being a lot more aggressive, I think, and I hope, in terms of highlighting people from marginalized communities at the event, highlighting men and women who are a little bit under the radar but have great ideas, trying to be more attentive to a more equitable society, a more equal society, a more diverse society. I'm happy with what we've done so far, but I also realize that we have barely scratched the surface of what we can do in the future. So it is always a goal to improve on that, to use our platform to do better. We've certainly made some missteps along the way and tried to learn from those, but I think we again have made some great strides there in recent years in terms of showcasing the kind of world that we want, that we think is slightly better than what's outside of South by Southwest, and we hope that by doing that in Austin every March, that helps improve Austin, improve the U.S., improve the world in some small way.
What do you see as your place or your purpose?
My place and my purpose is to highlight people who are doing really amazing things and have new information they can share with others, have inspiration they can share with others, who can push forward the conversation in a progressive way. And I think that all flows in as well to this idea of bringing people together. And I think one of the ironies of South by Southwest in the last decade or so is we've become much more focused on technology, and particularly have always had this strong attention to social media. That said, every year South by Southwest, absent the last 2 years when we couldn't do it, but demonstrates the power of bringing people together face to face. That as much as we have all this new technology, Zoom, what we're on right now, it is infinitely more powerful when people interact person to person, face to face, whether that's you're sitting next to someone at a keynote session, or you meet someone and have coffee with them or have lunch, meet someone old, meet someone new, make those connections face to face. And as much as our technology has improved and will continue to improve, there is nothing that replaces face to face. You know, I've at a few events I've given a speech that conferences, festivals, conventions are the new church, and I say that not to denigrate the power of the church, but just that we know that fewer people spend their Sunday mornings in places of worship than before. But this is one of conventions, conferences, festivals do have that ability to bring people together under one roof, have that sense of fellowship, have that sense of community, have that sense of sharing ideas, and that is a sacred trust, and I hope we remember that at all times.
Amazing. Do you have kids?
I do. I have two. I have an older son who's in college in New York, and a younger son who's in Video Game Academy here in Austin. I'm teasing on the Video Game Academy.
It sounds like my son. How do you think they'll remember you?
I hope that they will take from me the hard work ethic. I mean, and maybe be a little bit better at setting boundaries there, but understanding that you know, that most things in life don't come too easy, but the more energy and effort you put into it, the better you get. And in that sense, I think you can become a lot better and excel at almost anything you want to excel at if you put the time and energy in. I'm a firm believer in that. I've seen the results in my own life. So I hope that I can pass that along to them, or that they can see that in me and absorb that as they move forward in their paths.
Did you see our top 10 tech list?
I think so.
So Peter
But
Walker is responsible for your son's Video Game Academy and mine as well. He's the one that he created the ability for kids to be able to play with like your friends in Chicago. And I was like, yeah. And because he said he asked his son, like, you know, what do you think about this? And you know, he was saying how when I think he worked for IBM at the time, and they were like, there's no way you can't do that. And he goes, okay, watch me. And then he sold it to GameStop. So
well, it's certainly fascinating that at this point, I probably learn as much about my job from my 11-year-old son than I do from peers in the industry or whatnot. But again, that you know, that is completely in line with how technology is absorbed and implemented and propagated through our society. That younger users are really driving that experience.
So tell me how you want to be remembered.
I want to be remembered as someone who, again, championed this idea of creativity, championed this idea of community, helped hopefully helped keep Austin on this on the path that I feel like it's always been on, where community is equally as important as individual accomplishment. But ultimately, I think I'm less concerned about my particular legacy and more concerned about that what we did, what we all worked on in South by Southwest helped in some small way to make society a better place. Sometimes that's, or a lot of times that's in question, but hopefully on balance, we've done that.
I've got just a few more questions if you've got.
Absolutely.
Okay, super. So one of the other questions that Tim Ferriss had, and I love to hear your answer, is what is the best investment you've ever made? the best or most worthwhile investment you've ever made?
Wow.
One of them.
I think probably I mean, goes back to that story of how I got hired at South by Southwest, which was uh, having a computer way back in the relative pre-digital age. And that was actually, I'll say that was more of a decision of my dad, excuse me, my dad than me, where he suggested that at that time, before I joined South by Southwest, I was doing a alternative newspaper, quote unquote, here in Austin called the Austin Challenger. And I was bleeding through a ton of money, most of the money that I'd borrowed from my dad for things like typesetting, which was how you produced papers in the early 80s. And my dad at one point said, you know, I think you can save a lot of money if you buy a computer and a laser writer, and you can cut out that typesetting bill, and that will that may, you know, help with the cash flow. And of course, being 21 years old or 22 years old, I was like, you don't know what you're talking about. No, I have to have this fancy typesetting. And 6 months later, I realized he was right. And I went back and asked him, would you help me buy this computer and this laser writer? We bought that. And again, that led directly to being part of South by Southwest. It was kind of an early part of this whole idea of what the digital economy has done, which is streamline things, which is cut out middlemen like your typesetter, and that continues to this day, where new technologies are erasing some of the friction, sometimes for better, sometimes with results that may or may not be better.
Who's your favorite person?
That's a great question. I'm certainly a huge fan of 44, President Obama. That is partly because he, you know, decided to come to South by Southwest, and that was a huge milestone in our growth and evolution. I've been fortunate enough to meet him a few times during the event and a few times afterwards, and always been impressed and inspired by his thoughtfulness, his patience, his presence, so I'm still a big fan.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites as well. He's amazing. He makes you feel like you're the only person in the room. I mean, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and the fact that he can do that with, you know, the 10 million people he's met over the years.
Right. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, I remember, you know, he was like asking me about, you know, I think he asked, I said I had 2 boys, and he was like, oh, how old are they? What's their names? And it was just like, really? You know, like, really? This is crazy. He's the commander in chief. But yeah, it was pretty cool.
Same experience where, I mean, it felt like you're talking to someone you've known for ages, and was remarkable, and you know, that has always been impressive to me, and I certainly wish I had that same kind of command, patience, intensity, all of the above. And I also love that, you know, to what I've talked about with South by Southwest is, as President Obama has often said, you know, he's a community builder, and so that very much aligns with what I think and I hope we are at South by Southwest.
What are you most proud of?
I think I'm most proud of again, that idea that we bring people together. That concept where people have, you know, when I hear from people that they've gotten a new opportunity out of coming to the event. That is, being able to help people to get to the next level in their personal life, their career. That is fantastic. It's a huge honor. It's something that makes the long hours and difficult work very worthwhile.
And I think these last couple of questions, you've kind of talked about a little bit, but I just want to focus more. What's your, what was it? Your life lessons. What life lessons have you learned?
I think the life lessons that I am learning, because I haven't, I'm still in the process, is patience, persistence, the value of a long-term a long-term outlook, as opposed to immediate results. The importance of slowing down, of thinking, of deep thought. So all of the above, and I say that I'm still learning those, because I have some days where I think I'm really good at that, and then other days where I'm not so good and have to kind of walk myself back down from the ledge on those things. But again, I think life is always a learning process, and so hopefully at some point I'll better absorb these lessons.
What's your favorite book or book you'd recommend?
Wow. One of the books I've read several times, and mainly because it's easy to read, it takes about 2 hours, is a book called The Four Agreements, which is about, it's kind of about meditating. It's about not taking setbacks personally, trying to be the best you can do. So I've read that several times. I like that. I mentioned that book I read over the summer, the A World Without Email. I ended up buying about 10 copies of that for my staff, or various people on my staff. A couple of years ago, our opening speaker was a woman named Lori Gottlieb, who wrote this book called Maybe You Should Talk to Someone About the Power of Therapy. And I ended up buying 30 copies of that for my staff for the holidays. So I'm a big fan of books. Someday when I grow up, I want to write a book. I always love that legend, because I presume it was true, of what Phil Jackson would do with the Bulls, where he would buy each player a book for Christmas that he thought typified their experience in life. So it's certainly hard for me to narrow it down to a favorite one, but if you're going to force me to, I'll go with that Four Agreements thing. And I've also, to some of your conversation points, I've also very much enjoyed reading a lot of what Tim Ferriss has written over the years, and been influenced by that.
What's the best place you've ever lived or traveled, since I know you love Austin?
I love Austin. Probably the best place I've ever traveled was 10 years ago. Did a holiday trip to Thailand, and that was a blast. Great beaches, great food, very different way of life. So that was a lot of fun.
What do you enjoy doing in your leisure time?
I tend to read a lot. I tend to, particularly during the pandemic, like a lot of people, I've gotten more into exercise. So I do a lot of Peloton stuff. I try not to watch TV, because I know that once I turn it on, I never turn it off, but I do enjoy watching sports. and you know, more so in the last year from at home, but and enjoy watching films and experiencing culture that way.
Are you an Astros fan? You see their in the series.
Uh, I am actually more of a Red Sox fan, but
Oh,
not too disappointed that they lost, because they were far overachieving. So I didn't think they were gonna even get as far as they did.
last question. What does it mean to be chosen as a top 10 diversity champion? Because remembering that you were chosen by people in the community, peers.
It is a huge honor, and I'm humbled that there is a recognition of the work that we've done at South by Southwest and the work that we are committed to at South by Southwest. I think for myself and my staff, I think we're very committed to the importance of diversity, and for at least two reasons. One, it's the right thing to do. Underline that 1,000 times, that it's the right thing to do and we should be doing it. Two, our event celebrates creativity. Different kinds of people think differently. That's a good thing. We want to showcase the way different kinds of people think, because that opens people's minds to new thoughts. You may disagree with how someone thinks, but hearing how they think, hearing their ideas is always a good thing. Having more attention to the diversity within our speakers, within our platform at South by Southwest, I think is incredibly enriched the event. And something that it is an honor to do, and something that I hope we can double and triple and quadruple down on as we move forward.
Okay, I feel to have one more question. What's next for you?
What's next? The immediate next is South by Southwest 2022. What happens after that, or a big picture? I mean, I think I'm pretty sure I'm committed to this organization for a while. I have always said that when I grow up, I want to be a writer and want to, write a book. That is somewhere in me, that book, but it hasn't come out yet. So I'm still waiting for it to kind of, manifest itself in some particular way. And at that point, maybe I'll retire from South by Southwest and go off on a beach and write for 40 days and produce something there.
Yeah, remember those journals. I'm sure the journals hold a lot too.
Yeah, I think they do. And it's fun to go back and look at them. And, it's also fun to hear what Matthew McConaughey talks about. The book he wrote recently, published, The Green Lights Thing, and that came a lot from him going back and rereading the journals that he had written over the years. So yeah, there's something to that probably.
Well, when you're ready to publish, let me know. I'm a publisher.
Nice. Well, maybe a few years, but or maybe it's always in a year in front, but it's something to aspire to.
Always. Well, like I said, that was my last question. Is there anything else you'd like to share?
Your questions have been great. I hope I've given you something of value. Again, I just want to re-emphasize that last point I made, that a focus on diversity is the right thing to do, and a focus on diversity is funnels completely into this focus on creativity that we have at South by Southwest. When we if we have a panel or a session that are four middle-aged white guys, they just don't have the same perspective as when we have a more diverse lineup. And having a deep perspective, having different perspectives, having creating an event where people can say, yeah, I agree with what this person said, this other person said was really interesting, but I didn't quite agree with it, but it did open my mind to that way of thinking, that's what we should be doing. And we're not there yet. We're not fully there yet, but we're always trying to get a little better.
Well, I am curious, I talk a lot of, to people, African Americans, but how do you feel about, people say Austin is very diverse, and, African Americans see that it's very different. We experience it very differently.
Right.
How do you feel about Austin and its diversity and what that really means?
Well, I think we have, or I know we have some huge challenges here. When I grew up in Austin, it was very much the East Side was, you knew that was where the minority communities were located. That has now been much more gentrified, and those communities have moved to more of the suburbs. I think that generally the growth in Austin that we've seen over the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years has been a good thing. But I think the biggest, one of the biggest downsides of that growth is that the cost of living has increased so much more. And I worry that the gap between the haves and the have-nots is increasing rather than decreasing. And I also, I am very concerned about that within South by Southwest, that we have, over the last 10 years, we've moved from an event that was relatively accessible to a lot of different people to one that it's more expensive to buy a badge. It's more expensive to come to Austin from out of town, because if you're renting a hotel room, the hotels rooms are higher priced. And again, that's not healthy for the long-term future of either the event or the city. So it's something that we have to address in both places, making more affordable housing in Austin, making more robust transportation systems so that the communities that have moved outside of Austin have better access to all of Austin. But again, I mean, I'm preaching to the choir on this one. You understand these issues much better than I do.
Well, I do want to end on a positive note. So I want to know, what do you want to be when you grow up?
I want to be a writer when I grow up.
Awesome. Well, hopefully I'll get to meet you, or I actually met you at, I think you were at Bill Jones's, one of his events at the Fairmont, and I got to meet you there. But yeah, I hope to get to see you at the gala. We'd love to celebrate with you.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for recognizing what we do. Again, it's certainly less about me and more about the staff, the community, the city that puts this together. But we're honored to have that recognition.
Awesome. All right. Well, we'll see you soon. You take care.
Have a great day. Enjoy the cool weather.
Hair, man. Don't cut that hair.
Soon it's coming off.
All right. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.